Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday review time, but it will be slightly different this week because of the Easter weekend coming up and games being played on the Friday and the Monday. So tonight will be a look back at Saturday's very disappointing and ultimately concerning defeat at home to Shrewsbury, and then also a look ahead to Good Friday's game at home to Plymouth Argyle, another game where there's very high stakes and very little margin for error. But first I'm going to talk about Saturday's defeat. Myself and Boz were both there for the 2-0 reverse, which has left us now only 4 points off the relegation zone and suddenly looking over our shoulder again. After a very good run of form, it's now only 1 point from the last 9, which means that that gap to the dreaded drop zone has been reduced by a couple of points over the last week or so. In terms of the performance, I thought first and foremost we missed Leonardo da Silva Lopez, who I think has been very bright since arriving on loan. We missed his drive and his ability to get about the pitch in the middle of the park due to illness, sadly. I actually thought Dean Parrott was all right, one of his better games, but it was probably only him and 2 or 3 others that come out of the game with any sort of credit, and that was probably Dean Parrott, Thomas Holy, Brandon Hanlon and Billy Bingham, who I thought was really good first half. He had come back in, he'd been training for 3 weeks according to Steve Lovell in his press conference last Thursday, and was decent at the base of the diamond in the first half in a game that was devoid of really clear-cut chances. I mean, we hit the post very early on through Bingham himself from about 15 yards, and if that had gone in, who knows, it could have been a completely different afternoon. But without being brilliant or setting the world alight or outplaying our opponents, we were well in the game. For some reason, Steve Lovell decided to withdraw him at half-time, change the system, and quite frankly, we were absolutely shocking second period. Spent the first 15 minutes players looking around at each other, not taking responsibility, not seeming to know what their roles were. And the big question for me is, if you've got people like Darren Oldacre and Josh Reese on the bench, so you've deemed them good enough to be in the 18, and you've deemed them good enough to be on the bench to come on and change the game if need be, then why oh why, Steve Lovell, in a game that we're in and we're playing all right, like I say, not brilliant, but all right, and no, not really any worse than Shrewsbury themselves, why not just bring Darren Oldacre on if Billy Bingham has to come off? Or why not drop Dean Parrott to the base of the diamond he's played during the last few weeks and bring Josh Reese on at the side? I just cannot for the life of me fathom out why we decided to go to a back three, which included Barry Fuller, who's been probably our player of the season, either right back or left back this season. It's a system that we've not used for a while. We've been generally very good for 2 months with the diamond. So I just simply could not understand the need to change it so drastically, and it ultimately cost us the game because Shrewsbury come out and scored very early on in the second period while we were still trying to get used to the system, and quite frankly we were still in the dressing room, and then their second goal come on the hour mark and it was game over. We'd created a little bits in the first period. We had, like I say, the Billy Bingham shot that come off the post after about 2 minutes. Brandon Hanlon was unlucky with a header, reacted late after Graham Burke's free kick had bounced into a dangerous area and he just flicked it over. We had good delivery into the box a couple of times, I think, from Connor Ogilvie and Barry Fuller, one where Hanlon was very close to getting on the end of. Second half, until the last 5-10 minutes when Shrewsbury had shut up shop and settled for what they had, we created absolutely nothing. We had one header from Tom Eaves, an out of sorts Tom Eaves, I have to add, but he wasn't the only one that was straight at the keeper. It was like a back header. And then Josh Reese right at the end, after more good work from man of the match Brandon Hanlon, cut it back, and Josh Reese first shot was charged down, and then second shot was blocked on the line somehow. I'm not sure how it stayed out, and if that had gone in on 87 minutes with a bit of injury time to play, it could have made it an interesting end to the game, especially as Shrewsbury have not been in great form. It could have got them nervous, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, a little bit on Steve Lovell. I don't like digging him out and I don't like slagging him off, but well, this is a quote that he used in his press conference after the game and in the press. He said there was no intensity, there was no spark, it was dead, it was so lacklustre, and it was not us. Correct. Like I've already said, we've been generally decent for the best part of 2 months or so now. And that second period, unfortunately, was one of the worst 45 minutes of the season. But to say the players were lacklustre and lacking spark, I agree with. There were too many that were so far away from what they're meant to be at. It was unreal. But you have to take responsibility as well, Steve Lovell. You were the one that decided to change the system for no real reason when we were in the game at half-time. You spent the second half stood on the touchline with your arms folded, not really offering any sort of encouragement or passion, I suppose is the wrong word. I mean, you can describe, you can relay passion in different ways, and I'm not saying he's got to be screaming at everyone, but there was absolutely nothing from the side of the pitch, from our dugout, for the entirety of the second period. So, saying he feels let down by the players, I think he's correct to a degree, but I think he's let the players down as well, because there was no need to switch it to 3 at the back. There was no need to move potentially your player of the year, who's a fullback, to centre half. There was no reason to take off Billy Bingham for me. It's been confirmed by the club there was no injury. So surely if he's been training for 3 weeks, he can get through more than 45 minutes. Because we could have got him, we could have kept him on for 70 minutes. And if we continued to grow into the game as we've been doing with that system, chances are we could have gone on and scored a goal. And then you could have got Bingham off, won the game, and we're safe. But to make that change at the break and then lose 2-0 with little more than a whimper puts us right back in danger, unfortunately. And it makes Friday's game against Plymouth massive, absolutely monumental. Because if we don't win that and we don't win away to Bradford on Easter Monday, the gap could be down to 3 points, 2 points, and then suddenly we've got to play Charlton and Blackpool last 2 of the season. And that could be very, very tricky. And we could be in a situation like we was when we had to go to Northampton on the final day 2 seasons ago, and nobody wants that, and it's not something that I've envisaged. I still think we'll be fine, but it's just getting a little bit more twitchy than it really should be, and I think Steve Lovell has to take a fair portion of the blame for that on Saturday. Like I say, I'm not one to dig him out for the sake of it, but I think he got it massively wrong. He played Elliot List as a wing-back. Elliot List is not a wing-back, not in a million years. He said at the start of the season he wasn't even going to play him as a winger. He was going to play him as a centre-forward. Now, we can't get him in the side as a centre-forward at the moment due to the forward Tom Eaves and Brandon Hanlon, which is fine. But then don't just force him to play something that's completely alien to him, because results are only going to go one way, and it's not in your favour. And fair enough, he chucked on 2 more substitutes. He used all 3, which is something we've been crying out for in recent weeks. We always say that he potentially leaves his substitutions and his changes too late. So he got all 3 on. But for me, it was akin to a computer game. And we had Brandon Hanlon looking at the dugout after Josh Rees and Tarvon Campbell had entered the fray, not knowing where he was meant to be playing, not knowing what his role was, because we had him, Elliot List, Tom Eaves and Tarvon Campbell all on the same pitch. So, and we was playing with a back 3, so I'm not even sure what the system was, who was meant to be where. It was just the sign of a desperate last roll of the dice, so to speak, and sadly it didn't pay off. Yeah, a real bad day at the office. Like I say, there was only 3 or 4 that come out of it with any modicum of credit for me, and I think our highest rating was 6 or 6.5. Other than that, there was plenty of 5s and a couple just below that. It was really, really poor as I can remember. And our own form ain't great at the best of times, so to say that this was really, really bad tells you all you need to know, I think. But it's gone. We cannot change it, and let's hope we get a reaction Good Friday and we can put in a proper performance and earn 3 points that would, I think, see us safe. But there's still loads of work to do, and for me, concerning on Saturday was that there were a few that looked like they had one eye on the beach and one eye on the end of the season and one eye on the summer, and that's not good enough. But that's up to Steve Lovell as well to make sure that doesn't happen. It's all right talking about it in the press and saying that they're training hard, but you have to make sure that come Saturday 3 PM or this coming Friday at 3 PM, it doesn't happen, and everyone's at it from the get-go. And we have to be at it from the get-go this week, like I say, against this lot who are coming to town. Plymouth Argyle arrive in Kent on in the midst of a pretty poor run. In terms of last 6 for both sides, we have identical records. We both have 1 win, 2 draws and 3 defeats, giving us both 5 points from 18 available. And in terms of home and away, us at the Priestfield, lost 1-1, lost, drawn, lost. So it's 7 points from the last 18 available at the Priestfield, and them away from home park are not on the greatest run of form. 1 drawn, lost, lost, drawn, lost. So no winning 5 away from home. 5 points from 18, which is 2 less than what we have. Our home form has dipped again after back-to-back home wins against Oxford and Scunthorpe earlier in the year. We are now no winning 3 and only 1 point from 9 after losing at home to Bristol Rovers and Shrewsbury and drawing with Rochdale. Plymouth, though, on the road, shocking. They've only won 3 away since November. And in their last 7 away fixtures, they've only scored 3 times and have had 5 blanks in that time. So it doesn't point to a high-scoring game. But if we turn up and play like we did Saturday, then we'll get beat. Let's make no bones about that. We have to be a lot better. Their season, the Pilgrims, mirrors 2017-18 a little bit. They started off horrendously badly, then they picked up in the middle part of the season, and they just faded away again over the last few weeks, and they're not playing well. But the only difference this time around is that their good run wasn't long enough to take them away from danger. If you remember last season, they came to the Priestfield last day of the season with an outside chance of still sneaking into the playoffs, but this year it'll be a completely different game, and we're both scrapping for our lives. In terms of players in their squad that are going to cause a threat, Freddie Ladapo's got 17 in all competitions, 16 in the league, but he doesn't score many away from home, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He does have a habit of scoring against us. He has done for previous clubs. Graham Carey, still a threat, but in terms of output, he's not been as good as 2017-18. But one player I really like, who I did mention as a potential signing a couple of years ago, I think when he was at Coventry, is Ruben Ramirez. I think he's very good player at this level, very technical, loads of ability, and he's into double figures for the season, so we'll have to be on our guard against him. In terms of us and our team news, obviously no Gabriel Zaquani and no Ricky Holmes. I would imagine Regan Charles Cook will hopefully be fit after his knock that kept him out of the squad at the weekend, and hopefully Leonardo da Silva Lopez will have recovered from his illness. So I would make a couple of changes to the team that lost at the weekend. I would keep the back 5 the same, so that would be Thomas Holy, Luke O'Neill, Max Amar, Connor Ogilvie and Barry Fuller. I would start Billy Bingham at the base of the diamond. I would have Mark Byrne from the right. I would bring back in Leonardo da Silva Lopez from the left at the expense of Dean Parrott. And I would bring in Regan Charles Cook at the point of the diamond. I thought Graham Burke was pretty poor at the weekend. Didn't get into the game. Didn't really create anything, didn't provide much of a goal for it. So it might be just worth taking him out of the firing line, and he'd be a good option from the bench. And the front 2 I would persist with. I know we wasn't great at the weekend, but Thomas Eves and Brandon Anlon have been directly involved in 37 goals between them this season, whether that's goals or assists. So for me, you have to start them too. My bench would be Thomas Hadler, Alex Lacey, Dean Parrott, Darren Oldacre, Graham Burke, Elliot Liston, Tarvon Campbell. And a score prediction, I am going to go for a nervy, narrow 1-0 Gillingham win. But like I say, we have to be at it. We have to be 100% better than we were at the weekend, because if we ain't, they have players that will turn us over. So yeah, that's my prediction. 1-0, Regan Charles Cook to score the winner. Right, that's enough from me this evening. We will be back on Good Friday for Easter Match Day Live. I believe Stocky will be in attendance along with myself and Boz, so we'll have all 3 of us there, so you'll have to put up with the 3 Stooges. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, please keep doing all that you do. We will see you Friday for Match Day Live, and until next time, up the Gills.